Okay, so Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Imbuh Giri Mukti and my student number is 2005086081. So here I want to explain about language choice in multilingual communities of EFL context. So in multilingual communities, more than one language is used. So it means that people living in the situation may speak more than one language. So for the first is about language loyalty. Linguists have noticed that language is also in danger of dying and for some time have studied language fidelity, the ability or lack thereof of speakers of languages to deal with stranger language pressures. They have expressed disquiet of the threatened fate of an endangered language, a language that is no longer passed on to children as a native language, but is spoken by a shrinking and aging group of adults. Language shift has been studied in many parts of the world. There are groups that have worked actively to reverse the seemingly inevitable shift in language that occurs when a small, weak language or the language of a marginalized group comes into contact with the large, strong language used and favored by the majority or dominant group. And then language and ethnic. Inherently involved in socialization, the social group whose language is spoken as an important identity group. There are other markers of ethnic identity, such as food or clothing or religion. But language has special role, partly because it organizes thinking and partly because it builds social relationships. Multilingual societies inevitably face conflicts over the choice of language. Several aspects of concern for language choice can be explained in practical, political, or economic terms. Speakers of a language are in a stronger position when their language is used for national or international communication, or for government, or for trade and commerce, or for education. But the role of language is constructing social identity adds an additional non-material dimension to the conflict. And then language and politics. So language is regularly used in exercise of political power. Governments can try to control their minority groups by banning their language. The use of a regional or social dialect by a political leader is often a claim to a specialist ethnic identity, as Turkey bans the use of the Kurdish language by one of its larger minorities, by requiring voting materials to be available in Spanish and other minority languages. The U.S. Federal Ballot Act seeks to increase minority participation in government. And then language rights. The issue of language rights or linguistics provides an opportunity to try to take an ethical rather than a scientific view of language contact and conflict. There are several possible approaches. So for the first one, favored by some linguists, emphasize the right of a language like other endangered species to survive. To combat this, linguist anthropologists have worked to preserve in grammars, dictionaries, and collection of texts as much language as possible while there is still a single living speaker. And the second approach is not to focus on language rights as an abstraction, but on the rights of speakers of languages. And the last one is to concern the right of a group of speakers of a language to preserve and maintain their own favorite language or variety, and to attempt to reverse and shift of language to a variety of status or prestige. And then Pidgin and Creoles. A pidgin is a language that develops in circumstances where there are limited relations between speakers of different languages, such as markets, or where there are special situations of power relations, which are typical of the master-slave type of relationship in the plantation. It is a variety of language characterized by the fact that it is not anyone's native language, but is learned only through contact with people who usually continue to speak their own language within their own communities. And then, for example, limited knowledge of the Navajo developed by white traders. Each speaker makes his own mistakes and compromises. The term pidgin is better reserved for the social variety with established norms. In all cases, the grammar is simplified, meaning that certain features of the best language are omitted. In many social situations, Pidgins become remarkably stable over the time and function in a limited domain as languages of broader communication. They are learned informally in contract and are used primarily as languages of commerce. Okay, so I think just that's all from me. Thank you and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.